Imagine this scenario. You are the first one in the office and the last one to leave. You are the person everyone calls when there is a crisis because they know you will handle it. Your calendar is color-coded to the minute. You have the promotion, the accolades, maybe the perfect family photos on Instagram. But when you finally stop moving, maybe just for a second in the car before walking into your house, you feel nothing. Or worse, you feel a terrifying emptiness that you have to immediately bury with more work.
That is a chillingly accurate description of the silent epidemic we are talking about today. It is the person who is drowning in plain sight, the one nobody worries about because they look like they are winning. We are diving deep into High Functioning, Overcome Your Hidden Depression, and Reclaim Your Joy by Dr. Judith Joseph. And Alex, this is not just another book about being sad. This is about why your success might actually be a symptom of your suffering.
I have to admit, when I first saw the title, I was skeptical. We hear so many buzzwords these days. Is this just burnout? Is it just workaholism? But Dr. Joseph, who is a board-certified psychiatrist with a research lab in Manhattan, argues that this is a distinct, unrecognized clinical phenomenon. It is not in the DSM-5, the psychiatrist's Bible, but she says it is everywhere.
Exactly. And that is the hook. She calls it high-functioning depression, or HFD. And the scariest part? Most people who have it do not think they are depressed. They think depression means you cannot get out of bed, you are crying all day, or you cannot hold down a job. But HFD is the opposite. You are functioning at an elite level. You are pathologically productive.
Pathologically productive. That is a heavy phrase. It implies the work itself is a sickness. So, welcome to the show, everyone. Today we are unpacking the roots of this condition, trauma, anhedonia, and masochism, and looking at Dr. Joseph's roadmap for healing, which she calls the 5 V's. Sarah, let's start with a definition. How does Dr. Joseph actually define this if it is not in the medical books?
She defines high-functioning depression as a mental health disorder triggered by trauma that leads to a lack of pleasure in life, which is called anhedonia, and masochistic behaviors where you sacrifice your well-being for others. It is a specific cocktail. You have the trauma, which acts as the fuel. You have the high achievement, which is the vehicle you use to run away from the trauma. And the result is this numbness.
Wait, let's pause on the trauma part. Because when I hear trauma, I think war zones, car accidents, major assaults. But Dr. Joseph seems to be casting a much wider net here. She talks about big T trauma and little t trauma. Can we break that down? Because I feel like a lot of listeners might tune out thinking, well, I have never been to war, so this does not apply to me.
That is a crucial distinction. Yes, big T trauma is what you described life-threatening events. But Dr. Joseph emphasizes little t trauma, which can be just as insidious because we dismiss it. Little t trauma can be growing up with a hypercritical parent. It can be a messy divorce. It can be scarcity trauma, where maybe you weren't starving, but your parents were constantly anxious about money, so you learned that you must hoard resources and work yourself to death to be safe.
She mentions intergenerational trauma too, which I found fascinating. The idea that you inherit the stress of your ancestors. She gives the example of model minorities groups who feel immense pressure to succeed because their parents sacrificed everything to come to a new country. It creates this mindset of, I cannot rest because my grandfather toiled in a field so I could sit in this office.
Precisely. And what do you do with that guilt and that pressure? You work. You achieve. Dr. Joseph shares her own story, which is so powerful. She was a high-flying doctor, researcher, media personality, running a lab during COVID-19. On paper, she was a superstar. But she describes this moment where she is preparing a presentation on coping, and she realizes she is not coping at all. She says, "I think I'm depressed," to an empty room. She was using her career to outrun her own traumas, including a painful divorce and the collective trauma of the pandemic.
It is the running that really stuck with me. She suggests that for people with HFD, work is like a substance. It is an addiction. If you saw someone drinking vodka at 9 a.m., you would intervene. But if you see someone answering emails at 3 a.m., you give them a promotion. We reward the symptom.
We do. And that brings us to the second major root, anhedonia. This is a medical term that essentially means without pleasure. But Dr. Joseph explains it as feeling meh or blah. It is not necessarily deep sadness. It is the absence of joy. You check the box, you achieve the goal, but you feel nothing. You are just on to the next thing.
She uses a pop culture analogy here that I actually loved. She compares the HFD experience to Batman versus the Joker. Now, hear me out. She says Batman is the ultimate example of high-functioning depression. He has severe childhood trauma witnessing his parents' murder. What does he do? He becomes hyper-competent, wealthy, physically peak, and dedicates his life to service. He saves the city. But is he happy? No. He is brooding, isolated, and finds zero joy in his billions.
And the Joker, despite being a psychopathic villain, is actually having fun. He is laughing, dancing, expressing emotion. Now, Dr. Joseph is not saying we should be the Joker, obviously, but she points out that Batman has shut down his emotional center to function, while the Joker is all emotion. The goal is to find a middle ground, what she calls the wise mind, where you can be effective like Batman, but actually capable of feeling joy.
Anhedonia is sneaky, though. Dr. Joseph has a quiz in the book, and some of the questions hit close to home. Things like, do you make delayed future happiness statements? Like, I'll be happy when I get that promotion. Or, do you find it hard to feel fulfilled by resting? I think a lot of people feel guilty when they rest. But she is saying it's more than guilt, it is a restlessness, an inability to sit with yourself.
Right, because if you sit still, the trauma catches up. The busyness is a defense mechanism. But let's move to the third root, because this is the one that really challenged me. Masochism. Now, Alex, when you hear masochism, what do you think?
I think of, 50 Shades of Grey. Whips, chains, enjoying physical pain. But that is not what she is talking about here at all.
No. She is reclaiming the older, psychiatric definition of masochism, which is a pattern of self-defeating, people-pleasing behavior. It is self-sabotage disguised as virtue. It is the person who constantly sacrifices their own needs for others to the point of harm. She breaks it down into 3 types: cultural masochism, relationship masochism, and career masochism.
Let's dig into career masochism, because I feel like corporate America runs on this. This is the employee who works 80 hours a week, covers for everyone else, takes the hardest assignments, but refuses to take a vacation. And they think they are doing it because they are dedicated. But Dr. Joseph argues they are doing it because they feel unworthy. They are trying to earn their right to exist through labor.
And it benefits everyone except them. That is the key. Career masochism benefits the employer. Relationship masochism, where you are always the giver, the listener, the fixer, but you attract partners who are avoidant or narcissistic, benefits the taker. Dr. Joseph calls out the seesaw dynamic. If you are doing all the work to maintain a relationship, the seesaw is broken, but the masochist stays because the struggle feels familiar. It feels like home.
She tells the story of Jacob, a partner at a consulting firm. He works insane hours, takes calls in the ER when his daughter has a broken arm. That detail, muting the call to talk to the doctors, then unmuting to talk to the client, that is horrifying. But it is treated as heroic in some circles. Dr. Joseph had to basically prescribe him a vacation to the Maldives just to prove the firm wouldn't collapse without him.
And I bet Jacob felt immense anxiety on that beach. Because without the work, who is he? That is the question HFD forces you to answer. If you strip away the high-functioning part, are you okay with just being? For most people with HFD, the answer is a terrifying no.
So, we have the diagnosis. You are running from trauma, you can't feel joy, and you are addicted to self-sacrifice. It sounds bleak, but the second half of the book is the solution. She calls it the 5 V's: validation, venting, values, vitals, and vision. I want to focus on the first 2 today because they seem to be the foundation. Validation.
Validation is huge. And it is not just someone patting you on the back. It is about acknowledging the reality of your experience. Dr. Joseph tells the story of Sophia, a writer who was sexually assaulted. Sophia tried to bury it and just succeed her way out of the trauma. She moved cities, got big jobs, but she eventually crashed. Dr. Joseph used a tool called the CAPS-5, which is usually for combat veterans, to score Sophia's PTSD.
And the score was off the charts. What I found interesting is that seeing the number, the data, was what Sophia needed. It was factual validation. It wasn't just, oh, you went through a hard time. It was medically, your brain is processing a massive trauma. Why do high-functioning people need that data so badly?
Because they are gaslighting themselves. They are telling themselves, it wasn't that bad. Other people have it worse. I should be over this by now. We minimize our own pain to stay efficient. Factual validation, whether it is a test score, a blood test showing high cortisol, or even just reading a book like this and checking all the boxes, breaks through that denial. It says, your pain is real. You are not weak. You are injured.
She also suggests self-validation through mirror work. Now, Sarah, looking in the mirror and asking, how do you feel? Sounds a bit cheesy. Does it actually work?
It feels cheesy because it is intimate, and we are terrified of intimacy with ourselves. We look in the mirror to check our hair or makeup to check our mask. Doctor, Joseph is asking you to look past the mask, to look into your own eyes and admit, I am sad, or I am exhausted. It is about breaking the dissociation. You cannot heal what you refuse to feel.
That leads perfectly into the second V, venting. Now, usually, we are told venting is bad. It is complaining. It is toxic negativity. But Dr. Joseph defends it. She says, we need to vent if we want to shake off the sadness.
Yes, but there is a right way to do it. It is not just trauma dumping on everyone you meet. It is about releasing the pressure valve in a safe space. She talks about the feel-to-heal triangle. Usually, in cognitive behavioral therapy, we focus on thoughts changing feelings. But she flips it. She says, for HFD, we need to put feelings at the top. We have to identify the emotion, like, I feel disregarded before we can fix the thought. If you skip the feeling, you are just intellectualizing your pain.
This really challenges the good vibes only culture, especially on social media where everything is curated. Dr. Joseph actually mentions that the comments sections on her posts became a form of group therapy. People were desperate to just say, I am hurting, and have someone else say, I hear you.
That is the core of it, Alex. Connection. High-functioning depression isolates you because you are hiding your true self behind a wall of achievements. Venting and validation are about taking a brick out of that wall and letting someone see the real, messy you. It is terrifying, but it is the only way out.
So, for the listeners who see themselves in this, the late-night emailers, the perfectionists, the ones who feel meh about their wins, what is the takeaway, Doctor? Joseph ends the intro with a powerful idea. You do not have to be perfect to be happy. It sounds simple, but living it is the hard part.
It starts with stopping. Just for a moment. Stop running. Acknowledge that the high-functioning part might be a disguise for the depression part. Take the test in the book, or just look in the mirror today. Ask yourself, am I doing this because it brings me joy, or because I'm afraid of what happens if I stop? The answer to that question is the first step to reclaiming your life.
This book is High Functioning by Dr. Judith Joseph. It is a heavy read, but a necessary one. If you feel like you are carrying the weight of the world and smiling through it, this might be the permission slip you need to put it down. Thanks for listening to the show.